Welcome, friends, to Know Before You Go for the First Sunday in Lent. I'm Father Andrew Carl Wisdom, Vicar for Mission Advancement. You know, friends, everything we want to understand about this liturgical season is given to us not only in the Scriptures for this first weekend in Lent, but really the presider's prayers throughout the Mass. These include the opening prayer or collect, the prayer over the offerings, the post-communion prayer, and the prayer over the people at the end of Mass. These are not just filler, but they reveal in content the meaning, purpose, goal, and gift of Lent. The opening collect, for example, prays that through our observance of Lent, we may grow in deepened understanding of the riches hidden in Christ. So like spiritual explorers on a divine adventure, we go about discovering in this season deeper treasures and graces in our relationship with God. This is Lent's meaning. The prayer over the offerings asks God to give us the right dispositions as we begin our Lenten journey. This is Lent's purpose. Greater openness and trusting receptivity to God. The post-communion prayer requests that we learn to hunger for Christ, the true and living bread. This is Lent's goal. Not that false bread of the world's riches, glory, and ambitious social advantage that the tempter offers Jesus in today's gospel. The final prayer at the end of Mass implores that hope grows and virtue is strengthened amid our tribulations and temptations at the end of our 40 days. That's Lent's great gift, the strength in the relationship we'll have at the end of this journey as we greet the Paschal Feast. You know, friends, I can't help but laugh at a memory of my deceased father. He announced to me one day that he had a confession to make. He said, "Son, I got to tell you, I dread it when I hear Lent's around the corner. Just the talk of it fills me with this visceral negative reaction. Maybe it's the way I was formed and grew up in the church." And I said, "Dad, that's pretty big. It's going to require a big penance before you get absolution. Now, your candor may give you some points where mercy is concerned." But all joking aside, I think a lot of people may secretly feel that way. After the festive joy of the Christmas season, some see Lent as a real downer, a gloom and doom season in which the focus is on all that's wrong with us. You know, we have to give up these things we really want as kind of punishment for our sinfulness. And it's good if we feel guilty. So we just try to get through Lent until we can splurge on the good news of the resurrection and all that Easter chocolate. Friends, nothing could be further from the truth. Our journey, after all, is a preparation for the Paschal Feast. Emphasis on feast. As I told Dad, remember the old preface for Lent referred to it as this joyful season. We're grateful for this gift of time to draw closer to God. Lent is not a depressing time to beat up on ourselves. It's a disciplined time to thoughtfully reflect upon what my life is going, where it's going, and what it's centered upon. Is it God or other pursuits? Like money, the latest things on the shelves in the stores, or the newest, fanciest gadgets, endless pleasures and experiences, or the esteem of others. Have these replaced God as the priority of my life? Lent is going on a retreat as a family, at home and in our parish, where together we strip ourselves of the usual indulgences so we can rediscover our deepest desire for God among our culture's counterfeit desires. We strive to become more attached to God and less attached to those things and people and practices that actually distract us and rob us of God. That's precisely what the devil is trying to do to Jesus. Separate him from God and rob Jesus of his relationship with God in the desert in today's gospel. He tempts Jesus to be untrue to his identity as God's Son. And he does the same to us today. It's important to remember, Jesus was flesh and blood like us. He had emotions and feelings and attractions like us. His human nature, heart, and mind was exposed to weakness and temptation just like ours are. The Spirit led Jesus into his own personal 40-day Lent to strengthen him to deal with the temptations the father of lies would throw his way. And I like that title, Father of Lies, because it is so accurate. Sin begins when we are caught up in the lie that we know better than God. Don't we see that in our first reading in Genesis today? Everything is going along peachy, and then the father of lies tells the big one, to Eve, you and Adam are not going to die if you eat from that tree of forbidden fruit. Your eyes will be opened, and you'll be like gods. And we know the rest of the story. So glad we never fall for that trap, right? That we never think for a moment that we know better than God or go against our identity as God's son or daughter. Here's the tragedy. Adam and Eve were already like God. They were created in his image. Friends, the practice of detachment over 40 days of Lent, this traditional practice of saying no to what is superfluous, serves to heighten our awareness of God's presence within and around us. It strengthens our capacity to say no. And we do that to strengthen our capacity later to say no to more serious temptation down the line. But ultimately, it's all about allowing us to say yes to God's presence and will and plan in our lives. That's the food, the bread that truly nourishes our souls and gives us true happiness and peace. A longtime parishioner shared with me a wonderful image that really fits with this point about Lent and fits the whole season of Lent. That's what I want to leave you with. My friend Judith wrote, Father Wisdom, I've recently got back to quilting. I hand sew all my quilts, which involves tracing templates and sewing pieces and placing batting and finally quilting and binding. Sometimes I pray. Other times I'm busy ripping out pieces that don't fit together or are the wrong color. The other night I sewed, ripped out, and refit a piece at least 6 times. A couple of times I repeated the same mistake. And suddenly a revelation hit me, Father. The process of making a quilt is akin to living life. We make mistakes, we rip out, and we try again. In life we sin. Sometimes we keep repeating the sin over and over. Eventually, with God's grace, the pieces fit together until we reach another spot, which we have to keep ripping out and re-sew many times. Yet the finished quilt, Father, is a beautiful creation. Then Judith concluded, as we look at the finished creation, we see little flaws that others may not notice. And we hope and pray that our life with its imperfections and flaws will be accepted by God as the finished piece He created. That's so on point, friends. Work on the quilt of your life this Lent, together with God, and together with God, accept it, as the beautiful patchwork you have created together over these 40 days when we start to approach the Paschal feast. God bless you. God bless your Lent.